Welcome back to another virtual conversation with Geo Sefarad. This time we are doing our first conversation in English. So, we're trying, like we say in other videos, to be bilingual, Spanish and English, so we can reach more people. And today we have a great opportunity to talk to Dani Rotstein, who is the owner, the person behind the film Xueta Island and behind a successful business in Mallorca called Jewish Majorca. He's gonna talk to us about what he's doing there in Mallorca, how I met him a few years ago. But before we go to him, I want to share with you that I am from Sephardi origin. My family went from Spain to the Netherlands, to Curacao, and finally Venezuela, because the Jewish rabbi told the people in the island, we don't have enough space, we don't have enough business here, we don't have enough families, Jewish families to grow, so you better leave the island. And some people went to Panama, Colombia, and Venezuela. My family went to Margarita Island when my grandfathers are, and they decided when the children were going to come, the father was Jewish, the mother was Catholic, and they told themselves that God is going to decide if the first child is a boy, they're going to be Jewish. If the first child is a girl, they will be Catholics. Now you know why we are Catholics. It was but it is very interesting because we have embraced both religions as ours. I have a relative that have done Bar Mitzvah, and we have been there. They come to our first communions. It's very interesting. My family was the founder of the first Jewish cemetery in Barcelona, Venezuela. Now that you know me and you know why we're doing all this geolocalization of the small Jewish quarters, I want to focus on Mallorca. Mallorca, Isla Baleares, has a very important Jewish community that I am also following, because I am following the route of the Sephardi Jews. What happened to them when they took ships and went to the Mediterranean Ocean and beyond? And one of the places was Mallorca. So tell us, Dani, we know that you came from the United States to Mallorca, but what do you found in Mallorca in terms of the Jewish quarters of Palma? How you evolve your local tours to balloon tours and now the Xueta film?
Well, first of all, Jose, thank you so much for inviting me to participate in your conversations. I think it's very important. The more that we can share stories from all over the world, and I love the focus of Jewish quarters around Europe, around other places in Spain. I just think it's a beautiful initiative. So muchas gracias, toda rabba. Thank you for your work. Also, really quickly, I really appreciate your sentiments about my being behind a lot of the initiatives, but no, not possible for one person to do any of this. So I have to say a big thank you to Ofer Lazawicki and Felipe Wolokita, who are the other two-thirds of our three-person team who made Xueta Island the documentary, the creative force, and then a larger crew, cast and crew, everyone involved in the project. It's just a blessing to have everyone's spirit and collaboration. And yeah, same thing.
You have been everywhere. I saw that you have been in Miami Festival and now New York Festival. So you're been busy, right?
Yeah, very busy, very busy. Thank you. Thankfully, it's getting a really good response in the United States, Miami Jewish Film Festival, New York Jewish Film Festival, Atlanta Jewish Film Festival, and we've already been screening many places in Mallorca. So I know later we'll talk at the end of how you can help or how other people watching this can help. It's just about getting the word out there. We'd love to screen it all over Spain. I mean, if we could come to Sagunto, where you are, this would be beautiful. And the other project is Jewish Majorca, which is a for-profit business educational tour company. So we believe in doing educational and cultural tours to share the Jewish history of this island that, you know, many people don't know that Mallorca has this history. They come for what, Jose? For sun, for fun, for beaches, for beer, for booze, for bachelor parties, you know? No one realizes that Palma specifically and other towns in Mallorca have incredibly well-kept medieval Jewish quarters and incredible historic sites.
So guys, I want everyone to take a look around. I think streets really speak for themselves, and that's how you get to find out about the history. 1435, there's a mass conversion. Hundreds of Jews go into a church, they get baptized, and they come out as Christians. What happened in 1691 changed the course of history for these 15 families and all of their descendants. And this is why we're here in this world, to connect with everyone. There are so many incredible characters like rabbis, philosophers, map makers, mathematicians, Mallorquins that were Jewish, that contributed so much. Sefarad in Hebrew means Spain. Every archaeologist that I've shown this to says it is just a coincidence. You could see the top part of the Star of David. The ensaimada might be from a Jewish bread. I think it's important that we learn about history so we can hopefully prevent from it to repeat. This is the unique story that I believe needs to be told.
The nonprofit, which is Limud Mallorca, Limud is a Hebrew word meaning to teach and to learn. These is more of a nonprofit organization that does cultural activities for the Jewish community who maybe don't want to go to synagogue or who do go to synagogue, non-Jewish people who also want to learn, not different from yourself, about Jewish traditions, celebrate Jewish holidays. All of that is what Limud is doing. Also going into schools and teaching about the Holocaust, education, very, very important. And this has incredible volunteers like Mariano Valdez and Jota Segura, Teo Goldsmith, Juan Caldez, Carla, Adri, incredible team of people who are working behind the scenes and in front of the scenes to make our vision possible. Basically.
Great. Two things about that you just mentioned. One is the you have the balloon tours. You are expanding. This is a very innovative way to do virtual tours. How do you do that?
So this is called a hot air Zoom balloon. You know, we have this idea of going in a balloon and visiting different Jewish communities all over the world, Jose, because we started in Mallorca telling our story. But when COVID pandemic happened, we needed to innovate and pivot. And we decided the best way to do this was to go online. So not that different from what we are doing now. It's a conversation with a Jewish community professional, organizer, a Jewish guide, a non-Jewish guide, you know, anyone who can share information about their own personal story, like you just did, their community story, like when the synagogue was created, when the community was created, and then the history. You know, we go to places like India and learn about the Bnei Israel Jews that came on a ship, you know, 2,000 years ago. And we go to Argentina and Australia. We go all over the world. And it's really beautiful because we are bringing together people to learn about history, but also about today. What is it like to be Jewish in these places?
It's very interesting because during my research, I have found family and relatives in Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, and my own cousin. They say, we have the same grandfather. So, and it's amazing how people want to know more about these things. And then I imagine that this is going to lead our conversation to the film. How do you find these Xueta people and decided to do a movie?
So basically you asked about how I got to Mallorca. My story is very simple. I studied in Madrid for 1 year when I was in college. We're going back 20 years now. And I loved everything about Spain. So I always knew I wanted to go back to Spain. I was unable to get back for a long time. So I went to a Spanish speaking country within the United States. You know it very well, Miami, Florida. And there I was able to speak Spanish and to stay with the Spanish culture, which I love so much. And then I was in New York. I always was producing TV commercials. This I think is important to mention because I always wanted to be a storyteller, whether I was producing or filming or directing or acting. I always loved communicating stories in the most interesting way to enganchar, no? Sometimes I don't know the English word.
In the same way, I want to interject that I use storytelling in my classes. I said more 70% of my classes are not concepts and theoretical things that you can find in books. I don't do PowerPoints, for example. I don't do slides. I do storytelling. Okay,
beautiful. So you understand the importance. So I moved to Mallorca because I got a job as a producer for TV commercials. So I came only for work, single. I thought I would be there for a year, 2 years, maybe maximum. And I thought I was going to be the only Jewish person living on the island. And I came here and I suddenly discovered that there's a synagogue that you can go to on Friday nights. And I went and I learned that there's something called a mechitza, which is a divider between men and women in the Orthodox stream of Judaism. I was raised Reform, conservative, so men and women sit together in my synagogue back at home in New Jersey. But here in Mallorca, it's a separation. And you have to have 10 Jewish men in order to say certain prayers. So there was no rabbi at the time, no chazan, no cantor, just a volunteer who was leading Friday nights, Kabbalat Shabbat. And he said, we don't have a minyan. We don't have 10 Jewish men, so we have to skip one of these important prayers. And I counted around the men's section, 14 men. So I said to the guy next to me, why are we skipping when we have 14? All we need is 10. What's going on? Why does he say we don't have 10? We do. I counted. And he said, that's because some of these men are not Jewish, they're Xueta. So I don't know if your listeners or watchers know what the word Xueta means, but I'll describe it. The Xueta term describes Catholic descendants of Jewish Conversos from Mallorca Island. They carry one or two.
I am a Xueta from Segundo.
You could be a Xueta from Segundo, yeah. Maybe not. You might be a Converso, we would call it. Xueta is very specific because it speaks about coming from Mallorca, not from Ibiza, not from Menorca. Only if you're from Mallorca. And you have to have one or two of these famous last names, these apellidos, no? Segura, Bonin, Taronji, Cortez, Fuster, Miró, Picó, Aguiló. This is because the Inquisition hung these names in a convent of Santo Domingo, it's called. It does not exist today. And this is where, for hundreds of years, people would come and look at the names. And this is how they created this stigma. And no one wanted to marry these 15 families, so they married within themselves. They kept on doing endogamy, the intermarriage within their 15 families, even as late as up until today. I have friends, I know people that have both last names, meaning that both the mother and the father have one of the 15 Xueta last names. So I guess I was fascinated that this story wasn't, in my opinion, very well known outside of Mallorca, outside of Spain. I even went on Google, Jose, and I looked up for books in English, and I only found 3, maybe 4 books originally written in English about the Xuetas of Mallorca. It's just incredible that this is a story that has been kind of kept in an island, because you have to understand Mallorca. Now everyone knows of Mallorca, but really it opened to the world in the, let's call it the 40s, 50s, 60s, when tourism became a thing in Mallorca. Before, not too many people from Germany, France, or other places were going to Mallorca.
To me, it was always something of the past, of the history of the museum, going through Jewish quarters. Oh, if these stones could talk, if these walls could talk. And then I meet people who are Xueta.
Venga, va. Pues mi madre misma nos recordó y nos dijo a todos los 6 hermanos, no olvidéis que sois judíos. Ué, ¿qué passa aquí? Jo me quedo un poco sorprendido.
Hi ha una història de 600 anys, hi ha marginacions, hi ha execucions, hi ha sang. Però i ara què passa? No ens hem extingit, som unes persones vives.
Ardían sus carnes como un tizón y reventado por medio se le cayeron las entrañas como a Judas.
Queda muy poca cosa, es decir, el problema que tenemos aquí es un poco eso, que nos faltan muchos vestigios.
So this is the site of an old synagogue somewhere here. A mikveh was perhaps recently discovered.
Ilumina estas escaleras.
El tema chueta es un tabú. ¿Ves? Porque estoy hablando de los chuetas. No quiere que hablemos de eso.
These people have been forced to marry within themselves to the point that a rabbi in Israel says that they're Jewish. That's huge.
Lo que pretendíamos era constituir una comunidad más fuerte, no constituir dos comunidades, la comunidad chueta y la comunidad judía.
Si han pasado por todas las normas que rigen la conversión de un judío, que no vengan a decirme que tú no eres judío.
Eres judío simplemente porque tus padres, tus antepasados fueron judíos. Perdón, no es así.
Y realmente poco a poco se va construyendo este retorno.
Para hacer un retorno, primero tienes que haber ido.
The movie came as an organic way to organize all these testimonies and life, and now you think that it will be available to get known outside the United States. And this has come to my question about how this value of your Jewish quarters in Mallorca and this film is going to be useful for the people to go to Mallorca as a tourist destination. And then we want to move to what is the educational value that you want us to do in terms of educators, local authorities, to move your movie and your nonprofit to a different level, to be taught in universities, in schools, etc.
We say in Hebrew, from your mouth to above, you know, from what you say, so it gets heard high up, you know, because this really what you said would be a dream. I'll just quickly start with the last thing you said. For our film, Jose, to enter into the curriculum of youth education all over Spain, even in Portugal, this is the dream. This is really the dream, because we believe our film is an interesting way for young people to learn about the history. We have a collaborator, a co-worker who's in the film, Laura Miró Bonin, who is a young historian from Mallorca. She has two Xueta last names. She always speaks of an event that happened with her when she was studying, I understand, her master's degree, her post, bachelor's in the University of the Balearic Islands. The professor asked, who here has heard of the Xuetas? And in a class of history students, nobody raised their hand, only she did. And that's because she's from one of these families and heard about it in her family as a taboo, something not to talk about. This is terrible. This is part of the island history that everyone should know about. And it's connected. The Xuetas are connected to the Conversos of the island that are connected to the old Jews of the island. And so this is where we enter, I think, in terms of making this history come alive. Because when I first got there, Jose, I'm like you. Whenever I go to a new place, I always look to see an old synagogue or an old Jewish quarter. I'm the same way. When I was living in Madrid for 1 year, I went to Rivadavia, I went to Córdoba, Toledo, I went to wherever there was a Jewish presence. And I have to say that in Mallorca, when I heard that there was a Jewish presence, I didn't know in advance. Someone told me. I called up one of the guides, the official tour guides, and they basically tried to convince me not to take the Jewish quarter tour because there was nothing to see, right? It was like, no, we can do a general tour and we'll go into the Jewish quarter to show you one or two things. I said, no, I'm sorry. I'm a student. I love this stuff. Can we do a specific Jewish quarter tour? And she said, okay, but you'll see there's not so much to see. And she wasn't wrong. She wasn't wrong.
This is the fight that we have to do in many cities. Many cities and towns is more or less the same, but You already have the places, the buildings are there, the streets, and now you are building the story to go
There you
with
go.
the buildings.
So I went on one of these tours, a couple of these tours. I was underwhelmed. You know what that means, you know, a little like not impressed, mainly because in the 2 hours that we were walking around, not once did I even hear the word Xueta. They didn't talk about the Xuetas. Excuse me, Mallorca, you have the most unique thing in all of the Sephardic history, maybe compared with Belmonte or Braganza in the northern part of Portugal, where there are also documentation and evidence of crypto Jews living there for a long time, people who know that they come from the Jews. Mallorca has this incredible legacy. It's sad, but it's amazing. You have to speak about this. And so what we've developed is a number of different routes. We have a 2 hour, a 4 hour, a 6 hour. We do it on bicycle. We can go on Segway. We go outside. Now, I have to say that the City Hall is doing great things. They are putting memorials to where they burned the crypto Jews in 1691. They're doing a little interpretation center. It's not very big. It's the size of a studio apartment, but there you have panels explaining the history. This is great. This just came in 2015, right when I got there, actually. And so you have things popping up, but like you said, it's important to tell the stories. But if you bring people to tell the stories in front of a place that used to be a synagogue, in front of a house where a medieval Jew used to live, and we know this, then you can make these stories come alive. And so I have to say, what Palma has to offer for the tourist, Jewish or non-Jewish tourist who wants to come, is a beautifully well-preserved Jewish quarter, medieval Jewish quarter. I believe because, you know, Spain was not in World War II, and a lot of the wars that happened in Europe in the 20th century, it really is beautifully well preserved. This is a street, by the way, that you can't see the sign. It's called Carrer de Can Dusai, the street of the house of the family Dusai. The family Dusai was from Meir Dusai. He's a medieval Jew that after the attacks of 1391, his family converts to Catholicism. And there is a story of his family continuing to keep Judaism in secret in one of the houses that's down this street. So, you know, you have beautiful streets with beautiful homes, beautiful patios. You have a statue of a famous Jewish cartographer, map maker, Jafuda Ben Cresques, who created an incredible map in 1375. And this is it, you know, we are taking public schools around the Jewish quarter, talking about the Xuetas. Some of the students are Xueta, they have these last names, and they're discovering it on our tours, which, you know, maybe there are people, especially family members, who, you know, would prefer to not talk about this dark history, but we really believe that without placing judgment or blame, it's information that should be shared, that should be communicated. People need to know where they come from. And the only way to prepare us for the future is to know about our past. And we believe strongly in that vision and in that mission.
Now you know why we keep this conversation brief, because we need to ask Dani many questions about what he told him today. And this is why we want to invite him later for a panel where he is going to answer our questions. So we learned a lot today about what his plans for the educational value that he's going to bring to Mallorca and to the rest of Spain by watching the movie, visiting Mallorca. In the same way, we encourage everybody to go to the small, unknown, and forgotten Jewish quarters in Spain. So I want to thank you, Dani, for this beautiful conversation, very short. We try to pack a lot in a small period of time. I think that what you're doing for the next generation with your nonprofit, with your company, sharing how to start from zero to a profitable business is very important. But most important for us is that we need to continue educating the next generation of leaders, the next generation of people that are going to remember the history, but move forward for a better future. Thank you. I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.